Off that one off. Get that one off. Hi, everybody. Let me get the. Let me get Insta people on, and then we'll start class. There's just so much drama going on in the world, man. So much drama. Drama. Yeah, man. So much drama. All righty. Okay. Okay. I thought I started Instagram. Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's class. Papa Dr. Tochi here. For those of you who don't know me, never met me before, I'm Dr. Tochi. Thank you, Princess Rookie Green, for the reminder. Please like and share. Like, comment, and share so others can learn. Thank you so much. Like, comment, and share. What would I do without your reminders? All right. I trust that your weekend is treating you well. I just want to light a little bit of incense here. I'm going to light some Palo Santo. Bring it down a little bit. So I have my little handy dandy thing. It's cast iron offering plate. You can find that on my website. Princess Ruby Grease like to post me over some jollof rice. Okay, we'll send you some jollof rice. I hope it doesn't start fermenting by the time it gets to the UK from here. I hope it doesn't start fermenting. Okay. Welcome to today's Sunday class. And in today's Sunday class, we're going to do a little bit of Bible study. All right, we're going to do a little bit of Bible study. But again, for those of you who have been following me, who know me, you know that everything points to practical spirituality. And we should be able to look at almost anything in life and be able to draw some spiritual conclusions from whatever is going on, okay? And it is my prayer, it is my wish, it is my desire that the spiritual crew of each and every one of us makes us open and receptive and able to digest any and all forbidden fruit that comes our way. That we be granted the capacity to think for ourselves, to understand what is going on, and for us to have the ability to do things for ourselves. Ashe. Blue Blue says sensei. I don't know if I'm a sensei. Okay. At least not that kind of sensei. If you don't mind, please take a moment and share where you're watching the class from. I'm just kind of curious to see what countries are represented. Just put down the country. You don't have to put down the city if you don't want to. But let's know what countries are represented here. Now, Princess Rookie Green says she's from the UL. Okay, UK. Trying to type fast, are you? Okay, so UK in the house. I know there's USA in the house. Who else is in the house? Who in the hizzy? Let me know what country you're watching from. California, Victoria, Texas. I need to visit Victoria, Texas. I hear it's a lovely little town where nothing is happening. Okay, South Africa in the house. France. Yes, you. Of course, there has to be France in the house. South Africa. So we have Princess Rookie Green from the UK, Creative Solutions from San Diego, California, Sunshine Toasty Grandma from Victoria, Texas, Auntie Mazuba from South Africa, Plume Bloom from France, Kumisa Mokoteli from South Africa, Dr. Karen from South Africa, Tab Adams, South Africa, A. Shango, Kenya in the house, Mr. Vincent Azamedi from Ghana, Iyao Reofe from Germany, Leonard George Matlu, South Africa, Arctic Fox, England. Arctic Fox, I thought you were in the US. Wow. I didn't know you were in the UK. You were writing, you were commenting like you were in the US. I thought you were in the US. All right. What other countries? I'm surprised. I'm not seeing anybody from Nigeria because usually the Nigerians are like, hey, we're here. We are from Nigeria. Nigeria is here. If nobody from Nigeria is here, nothing is happening. So I'm kind of surprised. I'm not seeing anybody writing from Nigeria. Because we need to have someone from Nigeria come up in here saying, nothing is going on until we are here. And then we need to see someone from the yard. We need to see some yardies saying, yeah, you know, nothing is going on until we show up in here. So, all right. What other countries are we watching from? What other countries are in the house? We have Ghana, so I don't know. Nigeria, Ghana is in the house. Okay, Dick the Benz, Ghana. Princess Rookie agree about me day though. Okay, but you're in the UK, you're not in the yard. Okay, Lizzie, you're saying you are a Nigerian, but you know you are not in Nigeria. So I'm looking for the Nigerians in. Of course, I know you're a Yardie. What do you mean I never know you a Yardie? Of course, I know you're a Yardie. That's why I said what I said. You in the UK. I know you're a Yardie. So, Lizzie, you're a Nigerian, but you're not in Nigeria. I'm looking for the folks watching from Nigeria. Let's acknowledge the Nigerians in here because Nigerians like, we are here and you did not greet us. So, okay. All right. So, South Africans are here. They're representing. Ghana's here representing. Okay. UK representing. USA representing. Kenya representing. Who else in the house? Who else is in the house? I just love the smell of Palo Santo, the authentic one. Because nowadays you have to be very careful. If you go online and order Palo Santo, what some of them are doing now, they just chop up any kind of wood, and what they do is they soak it in Palo Santo oil. So it's not really Palo Santo wood, but they take wood and soak it in the oil. and then take it out, dry it, and sell it as Palo Santo. And how you know is when you start burning it. If it start bubbling, you got you some Palo Santo oil wood. Yeah. All right. I guess the other people are just kind of lurking in the background. They don't want us to know where they're watching from. Is there anybody watching from Nigeria? Anybody watching from uh, Jamaica or Trinidad? I know sometimes there's some Trinis in the house. And then, yeah, I haven't seen. Where are the Canadians too? Okay, Daniel from Ghana. Okay, so I guess the Nigerians are not in the house. So Nigeria won two. At the last minute, I was about to say Nigeria. Here's your last call. 1, 2, 3, and Imam Fatih uh, wrote up saying Nigeria. So he just saved. Imam just saved the dignity of Nigerians. Creative Solutions, you are in California. Where are you again? California? That's where you at. You're not in Trinidad right now. Okay. So one person came forth to save the dignity and the face of Nigerians. Okay. All right. And anybody from Canada? Martin Deladon from Ghana. Okay. See, we're seeing like Ghanaians in the house. Ghanaians representing. South Africans, Ghanaians are representing. Okay. Okay. All right. So let's get the class started. Since the other people are hiding and they don't want to identify where they're watching from, what can we do? So, like I said earlier, I pray that we have discernment and we have wisdom as we discuss today's topic. Okay? Pray that we're granted the ability to. Doris, you're Nigerian, but you're not watching from Nigeria. Okay. I'm looking for those watching from Nigeria. Okay. So we pray for the wisdom to understand what is going to be discussed in class today. Okay. Today's topic is about Naaman the leper. Okay. Now, before I get into it, I do know that a lot of people who are in class now and who will be watching this class later are not Christians. Okay, I'm looking for my water. Oh, I have like a cup of water out here. Yes, I did. So you may not be familiar with the story of Naaman the leper. However, we know that no religion has a monopoly on spiritual principles. No experience, no culture has a monopoly on spiritual experience, spiritual knowledge. Even though the voices of the world will say, my way is the only way. Okay. The creator of our universe can use anything to teach us. The creator of this universe can use anything, can even use this Palo Santo stick to teach us anything. And we have to be open to the lesson because we hear things at certain times to solve specific problems. You might be going along minding your own business, and somebody runs up to you and hands you a pamphlet. Okay. And they're like, yeah, I want you to come to our church. I want to save you from sin. I want you to go to heaven. And our first reaction to that is like, leave me alone. You're running up in here and give me this piece of paper. But many of us don't stop to think, is it possible that I have a message in this piece of paper? And that my spiritual crew was desperate, trying to find any which way to deliver a message to me. And the next person they could find is someone out there proselytizing and handing out pamphlets. And so, if and when that kind of thing happens, the least you could do is like, thank you, and take a look at the thing that was handed to you and read it and say, is there a message in here I need to hear? Is there a phrase, a sentence, a word that is a solution to the problem that I'm dealing with right now? And not get caught up in the fact that a preacher gave you this pamphlet and they want you not to go to hell, and they believe that if you came to their church and started giving them contributions there, that you will go to heaven. Don't get caught up in it. You can look at the piece of paper and say, I want to quickly scan through this and see if I see an answer to whatever it is that I'm handling right now, if there's a message in here for me. And sometimes it may not be immediately obvious, because you could be looking at the flyer and the flyer says, you're going to hell unless you come to my church. And you could be looking at that going, okay, where could the message possibly be for me in this piece of paper in my hand saying I'm going to go to hell unless I go to the church? But if you were to look at that message with your spiritual eyes, you could start understanding that what that message is saying is you need to go to your church so that you will stop suffering. Because the concept of hell, the spiritual concept of hell, is about suffering. So instead of interpreting that thing that was handed to you literally, you start interpreting it metaphorically. And then you'll find out that, hey, maybe this project I'm working on or this relationship I'm working on, if I continue with it, I will be going to hell. I'll be creating suffering for myself. So you see how that works. Sometimes spirit will use the most unlikely thing to deliver an important message to you. Okay. It will use the most unlikely thing. So this is basically what happened with Naaman the leper. Okay. And for those of you who don't have the background, I'm going to try to give you the Cliff's Note on Naaman the leper. Please remember to like and share the video. Let people know the class has started. Okay, so give it a thumbs up or a heart, whatever it is on your platform. Please take a moment to do that for me and let folks know the class has started. So Naaman was the top general in the Syrian army. And this was the Syrian Empire, not Syria as we know it today as a war-torn country. Okay. Syria had a huge empire in the Middle East back in the day. And I don't remember offhand if the king was Darius or Xerxes or somebody else. But they did have a big, powerful, fearful king who was in charge. Thank you for the heart. Please like and share the video. Let people know that class has started. And in Syria, they had the gods that they worshipped, the deities that they worshipped. Okay. And it was the king's routine that every morning, first thing, he would go to bow down, to venerate, to acknowledge the deities that they had. So they had a temple full of the idols of their deities. And when the king would go to this temple to perform his veneration and offerings and petitions, his top officials had to go with him. It was law. You couldn't say, no, I don't feel like going. It's not like today. People say, like, I got rights. Back then, there was no rights. If you wanted to be in position, if you wanted to keep your job, you had to go with the king to go bow down to the idols of the deities, the Syrian deities. And they had pretty powerful deities back then. Okay. They had very powerful deities. And it was these powerful deities that were enabling them to go and conquer different kinds of people, okay, and subjugate them. And at this time, they had subjugated the Israelites. And just as a diversion, when you really look at the history of the Israelites in the Torah, in the Bible, in the Quran, them folks went under a lot of subjugation, okay? They were, this other person would come and conquer them, or the other person would conquer them, the other people come and enslave them. So according to those sources, they were under a lot of enslavement and conquering and things of that nature. So anyways, at this time, the Israelites, Israel was under Syria. And, you had to pay tribute back in the day. If you were conquered people, you had to pay tribute to the king of whatever empire, or the emperor of whatever empire that conquered you. So, it's just like taxes. You couldn't get away from it. But then, the taxes were in the form of gold, silver, food, drink, animal, livestock. And you had to give it up. If they came in and said, we want 1,000 sheep, y'all had to go find 1,000 sheep. Even if it meant you had to go beg, borrow, or steal, you had to find 1,000 sheep to go give, or else you would get your ass whooped. Okay? So this is the context. Well, Naaman was a top general in the Syrian army. But he had one little problem that was not so little. He was a leper. He suffered from leprosy. Okay. And back in the days, not like now, we have all kinds of antibiotics. Okay. Back then, there was really no cure for leprosy. Once a person picked up the disease of leprosy, basically you got ostracized because it was contagious. If you had leprosy, the people living with you could pick it up too. And leprosy would start changing the color of your skin, something similar to vitiligo that people suffer from. Like when people start having patches of skin that's a different color from the rest of their body, leprosy would look like that. But basically what was happening is that the bacteria responsible for leprosy was eating away at the skin, eating away at the flesh, and eventually people would have their fingers fall off. It would eat up their fingers, and then their fingers would fall off. They will have nubs fingers, eat their toes, eat their body parts. And it was a disease. It was a slow disease. It was a slow chronic disease that just slowly ate away at the person and ate away on the person until the person finally died. And how people back in the day, in those days, we're talking about ancient days, we're talking about before, folks, we're talking about before doctors with with operating rooms. Okay, we're talking about before medication as we know it. We're talking about before internet, because some people are going to be like, why couldn't they Google the solution? No, there was no Google back then. Okay, because I know someone's going to come in the comment section and say they could have Googled. There was no Google back then. There were no phones back then. Heck, people didn't even write letters to each other back then, unless you were an important personality or royalty. Okay, people were living out in the country. There was no electricity back then. People, no pumped water. If you needed water, you went to the river, you went to the stream, or you dug a well. I mean, that's how you got your water. If you needed light, you lit a lamp, a handheld lamp. Okay. So I want to put it in context for some people who will be like, well, Naaman could have gotten on his Android phone or iPhone and Googled. No Google back then. Okay. And so when someone had leprosy, most of those societies will have the person sleep outside the community. So if there was a town, they had to sleep on the outskirts of the town. Okay. They couldn't live and sleep with other people because other people didn't want to pick it up. Okay. And if someone else got contaminated, they would send that person to come live with you. So a lot of towns back then or villages used to have a portion on the outskirts of the town where the people with leprosy would live together, like a lepers colony. All the lepers would live together. Okay. It's just like when people had COVID, they would isolate them, and all the people with COVID would stay together over there. That's how it used to be back in the day. So, despite his high position, he was a general of the army, he was in charge, he had money, he had power, he had wealth, he had connections, he had wives, plural, children, because back then, men could marry as many wives as they wanted to. Okay. He had all those things, but he also had leprosy. So, and he was always in search of a cure for this leprosy. And back then, and it still happens to some degree today. You know how like you might have a problem and then you put the word out, and then from time to time someone might come back to you and say, hey, I have someone who can solve this problem for you. And then you would go to the place to see the person that you think can solve your problem. So that's how they used to do back in the day. So you would hear that, hey, there's a prophet over there, or there's a doctor over there, or there's a whomever over there, they can solve the problem. You would get up on your horse or get up on your donkey, whatever animal you use for transportation. If you didn't have an animal, you would walk. And even if it took you 6 months to get there, you keep on walking till you got there, because you desperately needed a solution to your problem. Okay? And so this guy was always keeping an ear open, with the hopes that somebody somewhere would give him the solution for his leprosy. Okay, because that leprosy was making him socially unacceptable. Imagine having a disease that you have all the money, you have all the power connections and whatnot, but people still avoided you. They wouldn't really come close to you because he had this disease. Remember to like and share the video. Remember to give it a heart or a thumbs up. Let other people know that class has started. That lets the platform algorithm know the class, to tell people the class has started. So I'm just laying out this background, the context for you, so you can understand what was going on in this guy's life. Okay. So you can know what was going on in this guy's life. And then one day, somebody came to him, one of his servants came to him and said, Boss, hey, boss man, we have some information that the Israelites may have someone who can cure you of this leprosy. And this person will make it go away. And Naaman was like, how do I know it's not another scammer? Because we've been here, we've been there, we paid this person, we went to the other one, we gave them gifts, we gave them money, and all of them that claimed that they could take care of this leprosy, none of them could take care of this leprosy. Not one of them could. Okay. And the servant was like, no, boss man, I have I have it in authority that this person is good. Any problem you have, this Israelite prophet can solve it. Doesn't matter what your problem is. If you go see this guy, he will solve your problem. So Naaman said to his servant, tell the guy, I'm in charge. And by the way, the Israelites are our subjects. They're our servants. They pay tribute to us. So I'm not going to go over there to go see him. Tell him to come and see me. So they sent someone over to the Israelite prophet at the time. Okay. To say, hey, our master, our great master, okay, he wants you to come and see him immediately. And the Israelite prophet, whose name happened to be Elisha, remember Elisha had apprenticed under Elijah. Because back then, before you could be a prophet, before you could be a priest, you had to apprentice. Okay. It's not like now we do online courses and we do online courses and we call ourselves apprentice. Okay. There were no online courses back then. So if you wanted to be a prophet, if you wanted to be a priest, if you wanted to be a seer, if you wanted to be a medium, you had to apprentice. You had to learn the trade. You had to learn the the tips and tricks of the trade. Okay. It wasn't like then wasn't like now you can watch a couple of YouTube videos and then go hang out your shingle and call yourself a practitioner of anything. Or open up your own church online. It wasn't like that back then. Back then, you had to go apprentice for many years to learn how it was done. So Elisha had been the apprentice of Elijah. And Elijah had been a great prophet. And so they sent word to Elisha that, hey, Naaman, the great general, wants to see you. And Elisha is like, no, I don't go to see nobody. Indeed, we are under the Syrians. The Syrians have conquered us militarily. But in our tradition, the person who needs help has to come to the practitioner. The practitioner does not go to the person seeking help. And you can see there's a principle right there. Do you see that there's even a principle right there? If someone is coming in the comment section telling you, I am the Baba of whatever. I am the Santero, Santera, Curandero, Curandera. I am the high priest or priestess of whatever, and I can solve your problems. And they're coming at you in the comment section. You can see right there, they failed principle number one. It is the person who is seeking help that goes to the helper. The helper doesn't go out there, okay, hunting down the people who need to be helped. And granted that this is an excuse, a lot of pastors and so they use that when you say to them, "Oh, you're doing all these healing miracles. Why don't you go to the church? Well, not church, to the hospital to go heal people?" They say, "Oh no, they need to come to me. I'm not going to go into the hospital and be healing people willy nilly, randomly." So that's a misapplication of the principle. So, anywho, the message was sent back to Naaman that no, Elisha ain't coming this way, and there's nothing you can do to make this man of God come see you. You need to go see the man of God. So Naaman was like, okay, I understand that principle. I'm cool with it. So he got himself together, got together a travel party. Remember back then, folks rode horses and donkeys and asses and creatures of that nature. And he took along with him a lot of gifts because in his mind, he was like, I'm going to go see Elisha. Elisha most likely is going to mutter some incantations, magical words over me, probably wave a wand over my head, and I'll be free of this leprosy. And then I will give him all these gifts. So they took some days and went into the Israelite country territory, and they located Elisha. So when they got to Elisha's house, Naaman sent his servants to go in there and tell Elisha I'm here. He should come out here and meet me. Okay? I'm a great general. I have powers. I can kill. I can spare. I can destroy. I can build. I am vested with the powers of the king of Syria. So if you know what's right for you, you better start hot footing it out the door. Come and take care of me, my needs. I'll give you what I brought for you, and we'll call it a day. So the servants went into the house, into Elisha's house, and they said to him, "Hey, our great boss man is here, Naaman. So he needs you to bring your ass out of the house, come and mutter some magical incantations at him, wave your wand over him so that he can be going about his business because he's a busy man." And according to the reports, Elisha was sitting down chillaxing in his house. And he said, "That won't be necessary. We don't need to do all that. Tell Naaman that I said he should go dip himself in our local river." Okay? Go and dip yourself in the river. And the river he told him to go and wash and dip himself in was a Jordan River. He told him to go dip himself in there 7 times. Now, the Jordan River was not a particularly fancy river back in the day. Okay. It was dirty, small, dirty river. But there's a part I skipped over. Before Naaman went to see Elisha, remember he considered himself an important person. He wrote a letter to the king of Israel and he said, "Hey, I hear that y'all can heal me of this leprosy. So do what you need to do. I need to be free of this leprosy." And when the king of Israel got that letter, he started weeping because he was like, "Why are you telling me that I need to cure you of your leprosy? Do I look like a doctor?" So already there were a lot of people in Israel who were stressed out just because this guy was coming to their country to get treated. They were stressed out. And that was before he got the information about Elisha the prophet. So folks are already stressed out. What is going to happen if this guy doesn't get cured of his leprosy? Okay. Please remember to take a moment to like and share the video. Let other people know that we are in class. Okay. Take a moment to do that. The hearts, thumbs up, whatever your platform asks for. So, anywho, back to the story. So, Elisha told him, "Go wash yourself 7 times in the river Jordan." Naaman got pissed off. "How dare you? I came all the way. I lowered myself and came all the way to your miserable little hut. And all you can tell me to do is to go wash myself in the Jordan. And in Syria, we have bigger and better rivers, more prestigious rivers. Why the heck would you tell me to go dip myself in the Jordan? What kind of fake prophet are you? Matter of fact, I need a cut of your head." And he was angry and he told his servants, "Let's go. This is another scammer." So one of the servants said to him, "Sir, bossman, sir, bossman. Can I say something?" The man was, "What?" He was like, "Wait a minute. We cannot legitimately have a case against this prophet if we did not do what he asked us to do. Because if you were to tell anyone the story of what happened right here, everybody's going to blame you. They're going to say, did you at least try what he said?" And if you say no, he was an idiot, people are going to say maybe you were the idiot. You didn't even give it a try and you're already screaming, hollering, carrying on. Why don't you just go ahead and do what he said? And if it does not work, then you will be justified in doing to him anything you want to do. Do you see that's a spiritual principle number 2? Did anyone get the spiritual principle right here? The spiritual principle number 2. Did anyone, is there anyone in class right now who understood the spiritual principle number 2? Anyone? The spiritual principle number 2. Did anyone get spiritual principle number 2? Did anyone get it? Okay, thank you, Madame Leone. Obedience. You got that right. Obedience. Yep, you got that right. Obedience. And that is why you will hear a lot of Christians say obedience is better than sacrifice. Yep. When you have been told what to do. And a lot of people fail at this. I see this during my divinations. People come to me for a divination. The divination says, here is a solution. They don't want to do it. And they feel that their wisdom is better than the spiritual wisdom they went to seek. And, and so they won't even do what they were told to do. And they miss out on solving their problem. So luckily, Naaman had a servant who said to him, Sir, let us do the needful. There is another spiritual principle, number 3, hidden in that too. Can anyone tell me what that third spiritual principle is? When the servant said to him, let's do this thing, let's be obedient first. And if it doesn't work, then we can take action. Can any tell me what the third principle is in there? And I'm taking my time to tell the story because I need people to understand the spiritual principles at play. No, we already, Kamisa, we've already talked about obedience. There is there is a third principle after obedience. What's the other one? Not humility. No, Ashango. No. Dr. Karen, accept. No. Why do we have to be obedient? Okay, we have to be obedient because we want to solve the problem. But what is another reason for being obedient? No, not humility. Why do we have to be obedient? We are obedient because we want to solve the problem. What's the second reason why we need to be obedient when it comes to spiritual instructions? Nope, not sacrifice. What is the reason? Anti-Mazuba patience? No. Dicta Ben's practice? No. We are obedient because we want to get the solution. That is clear. But what is another reason why we have to be obedient? No. What is another reason why we have to be obedient? Tula Tula, positive results? No. Dr. Karen, faith? No. Rashida Alo, the success of the work? We already talked about it. We already said we're obedient because we want the work to succeed. But what's another reason why we want to be obedient? Verity Mordila, follow instruction? No. Why? 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 We want to get the results. We want to do what we're supposed to do to get the results. We want to be successful. Okay. We got that. But what's another reason why we have to do what we have been asked to do? Believe and trust? No. God's will? No. Believe? No. Why? It's a very simple answer. Think about it. It's not that difficult. Think about it. If somebody says to you, take up this Palo Santo stick and your problems will be solved. You're saying, okay, I'm going to be obedient and do it. But what's another reason why you would do it? We got the answers from our spiritual teams as believing in our self solution. No, there's nothing complicated like that. Trust, no. Message coming from spiritual crew, no. Why? The reason why we do it, because if I let you guys, you're writing all kinds of things up in here. Learn, no. The reason is to be justified. No, not spiritual crew can help us accomplish. It is for justification. When I'm obedient, I can be justified. If the matter is to be debated or discussed on a spiritual level, the question will be asked, did she do what she was told to do? Yes, she was obedient. So because she's obedient, she's justified. And once you are justified, you can invoke higher powers if you do not get what you want. So basically, what Naaman's servant was saying to him is, if we go do this thing Elisha is telling us to do, go dip in the water 7 times, and it doesn't work, if you go and burn his house down, you will be justified. Why? Because you were obedient and you did what he told you to do. And after you were obedient, you obediently did what he told you to do, and it still didn't work. You are free to do whatever you want to do to him. And that's a powerful spiritual principle. This is a reason why some people's rituals and spells fail. And I've talked about it in my video. Why are your rituals failing? Why are you not getting the results you're wanting? I have a couple of videos on that at least. Because if you were to start dealing with the issue spiritually and say, I want to deal with this person that said they're going to help me and they did not help me, and I did everything they told me to do and it didn't help me, you will have a case. You'll be justified. You will be coming with clean hands. And some of you who have seen some of my rituals, you'll hear me talk about some not so nice rituals, and I say before you do this ritual, you want to come to it with clean hands. In other words, I have done everything I'm supposed to do. I am not guilty. I am not the guilty party. And therefore, if for nothing else, you must help me because I've come with clean hands. Because I did what I was supposed to do. And it didn't work out for me. And so that's why if somebody curses you, let me make it more specific. Remember how a lot of people are kind of concerned, oh, if your mother curses you, that's it, you're jinxed for life, or if your father curses you, you're ruined for life. No, 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 no. They have to be justified. If that parent cursing you or the child cursing you, or whomever is cursing you, and they're saying these things against you, and they're not justified, none of it will come to pass. The only way it will come to pass is if you allow yourself to be mentally poisoned and you start believing what they're saying. But what they're saying has no power of its own. And if you want to learn more about mental poisoning, please watch my video on YouTube, Mental Poisoning. There are some people who are able to negatively impact other people through mental poisoning. They have no spiritual power to do nothing to you. But because you believed what they said, it became a reality for you. You allowed them to mentally poison you. So a lot of people go, no, no, if this person curses you, you're in trouble. If the other person, because it doesn't quite work that way. There has to be justification. Because when you are justified, the powers of the universe will come together and align behind you and put power to whatever it is that you're doing or saying. If you are justified. But if you're not justified, that is when you have to go and start making agreements and covenants and vows and contracts with this entity and that guide and this and that, because you know you're not justified. And if the person you're acting against decides that they want to react against that, all of that will turn around, because in the court of spirit, your spiritual crew will stand for you and say, this person doing this is not justified against my person. You're not justified against my person, our person. What is the justification? And if no justification can be put forth, all of that will go back to sender. It doesn't happen automatically. Remember, don't think that, oh, I'm sitting here, I didn't do anything, and therefore nothing should happen to me. No. Once you challenge it, it will go back to sender. Because you're justified. But if you're not justified, if your hands are not clean, if you've not done what you've been asked to do, if you have not been obedient, then you get what you get. So do you see the simple story has a number of principles embedded in it? Okay. So, I'm sweating. It's just like, I just sit up and start sweating. Okay, so Naaman luckily thought about it and he said, okay, you're right. I'm going to go dip myself in the Jordan 7 times. And if nothing happens the way I expect it to happen, someone's going to pay. And the servants were, well, let's just go first. So Naaman went to the Jordan River and dipped himself in there 7 times. And I have a video on water baptism. If you want to know the spiritual significance of dipping yourself in water, I have that on my YouTube channel. Look it up. What's the spiritual significance? How can you use that to start something new in your life? It's on my YouTube channel. You can go watch it there. And so he does that 7 times and gives himself 7 new spiritual chances. Seven levels of power. And so Naaman, after he dipped himself the seventh time and came out of the water, all traces of his leprosy was gone. He was dumbfounded. He was flabbergasted. He didn't know what to say, except we need to go back to that Elisha. I'm going to give him all the gifts that I brought for him. And if he wants more, I will give it to him. Because this man has solved the problem that my power and position and authority was unable to solve. I'm going to give him whatever. There's another spiritual principle in there. Payment for spiritual services. Payment for spiritual services. And I do have a YouTube video on why you do not want your spiritual practitioner to be paying for your work. It's on my YouTube channel. Go in there and watch that video. Because Naaman could have said, hey, I'm a powerful man. I don't need to pay that guy. After all, we have conquered the Israelites, and he should be glad that I did not take off his head. He should be grateful. And there are a lot of people who are in positions of authority and power who feel entitled. They feel that it is your job to be giving them free things. They depend on freebies. I'm rich, I'm powerful, I'm high, I'm mighty, I'm connected. Why do I have to? You should even be grateful that I'm giving you the opportunity to do something for me. There are a lot of people walking around with that kind of attitude. And when they fall, when such people fall, when they get into trouble, their trouble is spectacular. So if you haven't watched that video, I encourage you to go to my YouTube channel and watch that video. Why you should not let a spiritual practitioner pay for your work. Because there's some people who are like that. I get DMs and emails, oh, Dr. Tochi, can you do this for me? And I promise after you're done, I will pay you. And when you watch that video, you will learn a lot more about that principle, what is going on there. That is why you find out that when wealthy people want to do spiritual work, they are generous. They're not there saying, well, you said it was $100 and you better make this $100 work. That is why when wealthy people do rituals, they do not give the spiritual practitioner any excuse not to succeed. Because a lot of them will pay the $100, probably pay $200 or $300 because they want to make sure that you have everything you need to make that thing work. That there's no excuse for it not to work. And they're not interested in knowing the cost price, the selling price, the difference between whether it's a profit or loss. They don't care. They're like, here's a solution I want, and here's the money, all the money you need, and even more to get it done. So think about that. Because oftentimes people get what they pay for. People get what they pay for. Oh no, you said it was $100. You said it was $1,000. Why are you saying you spent extra $10 and whatever and na. When a wealthy, powerful person needs to have their problem solved, they're not there counting how much what they know is, I want this problem solved. I don't want this to be a problem for me again. I don't want to come and revisit this. I want it one and done. That's how the wealthy operate. I'm not saying that each and every one of us can operate like that, but that's how the wealthy get their stuff done. And so Naaman starts making his way back to Elisha's house, and he gets there. And he's the one now that gets off his high horse and runs in there to go talk to Elisha. Because remember, before he was sitting up on the horse and saying, Elisha better hie himself over here and come and talk to me. But this time he's the one that gets off his horse and runs in there, and he bows down, prostrates himself before Elisha. And he says, I have never seen anyone like you in my life. This thing that has plagued me all the days of my life, you're the only person who solved it for me. Ask me for anything, I'll give it to you. Look at all the gifts I brought for you. I'm willing to bring you more. Whatever you want from me, I will give it to you. Why? Because Naaman recognized power. He recognized the power that was greater than his military and physical power. And there's another spiritual principle in there. Do not underestimate another person's power. The fact that Elisha was in a little hut somewhere belied the fact that he was a very powerful person. And Naaman recognized that this man in his hut was more powerful than him, a military guy, the guy in charge of the armies, he that was second to the king, that this man in his hut was more powerful than him. He submitted to it. But there are many people today who will go and raise themselves up against their helper. And I have a video on that, why you should not antagonize your helper. Go to my YouTube channel, you will see a video on why you should not antagonize, why you should not go against your helper. The person had more power than you in some way. That's what enabled them to help you. A person who doesn't have more power than you in some way cannot help you. Well, I'm richer than they are. I'm more connected than they are, but they helped you. And in that one thing you needed help, they were greater than you. Yes, you have money, you have power, you have connections, you have looks, you have whatever. But in the one thing you needed help with, you couldn't help yourself. And they helped you. So in that one thing, they're greater than you. You do not want to antagonize your helpers. Because there are people who are like, why should I do this? Who do they think that? Well, they helped you. They solved your problem. Well, I gave them 10 problems to solve and they solved 9 out of 10. But they still solved 9 out of 10. And so they solved 9 out of 10 of your problems. They didn't solve the one problem, and you think you can do and treat them anyhow. You better be prepared for whatever you get from that kind of attitude and behavior. Because if somebody helped you with 9 things out of 10, even if they helped you with one thing out of 10, and you go there and aggravate them and cuss them up and do all kinds of things, should you present with that one problem again that only they can solve, they will not help you. And they're not obligated to help you. They'll be operating under the spiritual principle of justification. They'll be justified in not helping you. So Naaman went and prostrated himself before Elisha, and he made a promise to him. He said, "For the rest of my life, I will worship your God." And we're not going to go into a debate as to what kind of God it was. Because, Christians are going to say, "Oh, yeah, that was the Almighty Creator. That's who Elisha was worshiping." We could debate that. But if we are to interpret it literally, Naaman said to him, "The deity you worship, I from today will start worshiping that deity. Whatever it is you're worshiping, I will worship it with you." So Elisha said to him, "You know what? I don't need your gifts or anything. You just go ahead on. Just go ahead on. I don't need it." And Naaman said, "I have a little problem though. The problem I have is I'm second in command to the king." Remember, I mentioned this at the beginning of the story. And every morning, as his right hand man, myself and the other officials, we have to go every time the king goes to venerate the deities of Syria. We must be there with him. We must bow down with him. Even when the king prostrates before the deities, we too must prostrate. We can't say we're not doing it. That is a requirement of my job, of my job. And if I don't do it, I could lose my life. I could be accused of being disloyal to the king. And that's high treason. I could be accused of being unfaithful to the gods, the deities of Syria. It caused a lot of problems for me. So this is what I'm going to do. I will take the soil from here, where you're at. You, Elisha, I'm going to take the soil from here. And I'm going to take a lot of it. And I will take it home with me. And it is on this soil that I'm taking from you, from here, that I will be venerating your deity, which has become my deity. I want this to be our agreement. And so when I go with the king to go bow down before the Syrian deity, I want your deity, who is now my deity, to understand that I mean nothing by it. My heart's not in it. I'm just doing my job. But my true veneration, my true worship, my true obedience is to your deity, who is now my deity. And that's why I'm taking the soil here as a representation of your deity. You see, that's a bundle of principles, spiritual principles up in there. So Elisha said to him, "Cool, do you. Do what you got to do." So Naaman took two huge basketfuls of soil from there, where Elisha was at, and took it with him home. With the gifts he brought for Elisha, because Elisha said, "I don't need your gifts." And one of Elisha's servants went and kind of waylaid them on their way home and said, "Okay, I know my master Elisha said he didn't want the gifts, but you can give the gifts to me." So Naaman's like, "Yeah, take them, take them, take them." So Elisha's servant took those gifts and took it home, and he suffered for that, which is a story for another day. Today's focus is on Naaman. So Naaman went home, put up that soil, Israelite soil, in his home, and told his household what had happened to him. So every morning, he would go to the king, and he and the king and the other officials would go to the Syrian deities, the temple of the Syrian deities, and they'll go there and they'll sing and chant and cry and roll themselves on the ground and go through all those theatrics. We do all that. But his real God, his own deity, was in his own house. His own God was in his own house. So, who can tell me the spiritual principle behind that? Naaman taking that soil, telling Elisha what he told him, and taking that soil home. Let's see if folks are listening and paying attention in class. What's the spiritual principle behind that? And where do we see that happening in real life today? Let's go. And for the person who gets it correct, I will give them a free dream interpretation. Let's go. But make sure you have not won a dream interpretation from me in the past 60 days so that we give other people a chance to win a free dream interpretation. I'm feeling generous today. Remember, when I do your dream interpretation, it's in writing. Okay. What is what are the one or two spiritual principles embedded in what Naaman did, in what he said to Elisha, and in him taking that? So, what would name the spiritual principles that you understand that were operational there? Auntie Mazuma, Auntie Mazuma, please don't slay me. She's like, this PhD class is getting tougher. No, because folks be lying down in their beds, relaxed in their pillows, and some people be out here writing, uh, today's show was powerful. I remember the other person who wrote it last time, I think it was Creative Solutions. Today's show was powerful. Some people see it as a show. Some people see it as a class. So let's go. Dr. Karen, discipline. What do you mean by discipline? I need a sentence, not a word. What is the spiritual? I need an explanation, not just a word, because a word, you're making me work to try and figure out what you mean by throwing out a word. What does it mean? Why did Naaman say to him, I will take this soil? Your deity, your God is now my God. Your deity is now my deity. I'm going to take this soil with me back home. And here's what I'm going to do with it. Creative Solutions, no. Rashida, a covenant. What do you mean by a covenant? Folks, don't be throwing out one or two words and trying to make me work hard to figure out what you mean by that. I need an explanation, not just a word. Give me an explanation. You're trying to make me work hard to try and figure out what you're saying. Anybody? Insta folks? Anything from you? YouTube folks? I think it's the YouTube folks who are at least making an effort. Facebook folks, let's hear from you. Insta and Facebook. What do you think was happening there? There are a number of principles at play. And that little thing that he did there were some principles at play. Creative solutions, incorrect. Sorry, no, that's not the spiritual principle. Because the dirt was not the source of the spiritual power. No. Is there anyone who understands the number of spiritual principles that were at play? Like just that simple conversation that happened and the simple act, what spiritual principles were at play? And remember, if I answer it, then I can't give out the prize. What is the spiritual principle? What spiritual principles were at play? Or should I keep the solution to the answer for the member class? Maybe I should discuss it in the member class. His conscious Zuripenda, his consciousness raised, he released the past, moved to a higher dimension. Nope, it's much simpler than that. Okay, Nola Williams, he was humble enough to admit the power is greater than his. Yeah, but what's the spiritual principle? Okay, I'm seeing an answer that is that's close to, that's coming close to one of the principles. Elisha's anointing slash DNA spiritual power is in the soil. False. Not correct. Lizzie O1. He became aligned with the spiritual crew of Elijah. That's correct. That's correct. There's a spiritual, the principle of alignment. Okay. So Lizzie, send me an email. He aligned himself. He discovered that there was this other power that was greater than what he was working with. So he quickly aligned himself with it. Correct. Dicta Benz. The sand and the words represent a covenant he's making between himself and Elisha's deity. That's correct. So Dicta also sent me an email. Okay, this is interesting. Let me show this on the screen. Uh-oh, here. Naaman made an alignment covenant with the terrestrial powers of Elisha's land. In other words, he became a secret Israelite. Now, that is not the spiritual principle. And unfortunately for you, someone already mentioned alignment and covenant. Okay. Lizzie mentioned alignment before you did. Dicta Benz mentioned covenant before you did. Okay. I wouldn't say, um, well, secret Israelite. Is there a spiritual principle being a secret Israelite? Okay. Okay, Dicta Benz is saying a covenant by making an agreement to honor Elisha's deity. Okay, but there's something about what Yahweh has written which is interesting. He became a secret Israelite. What is that principle? Because there's something in your answer, Yahweh, that if you think about it, there's a third principle in there. And I need you to explain that principle. Because someone else has mentioned alignment, someone else mentioned covenant, but you are alluding to a third principle. A Sango, keeping the soil in his house while venerating the king's gods was about being discreet. What is the spiritual principle? Because we still have this happening today in our churches. What is, explain that spiritual principle? We need to start wrapping up the class. What is the spiritual principle behind him telling Elisha what he told him, taking that soil, that earth, taking it to his home, but carrying on his job with the king? Nope, not the principle of silence. Nope, nope. And we see it happening today. It's happened for centuries. He wants to become a devotee of Elisha's deity. He has already become a devotee. He already said it. Showing honor? No. Taking a disguise? What do you mean by taking a disguise? What do you mean by taking a disguise? Insta folks, we're not hearing from you. Nola, it became his lifestyle, a ritual. No? What's the spiritual principle? Okay. I have to give it to A Sango because A Sango is is like like when somebody's like, I'm not gonna give this up. I'm going to work this. I'm going to be using whatever words. Okay, so I'm gonna give it to A Sango. A Sango, send me an email, and I will connect you with your free dream interpretation as well. Okay, I want everybody to see what A Sango wrote. A disguise, because remember, A Sango wrote initially taking a disguise, and I said, "What do you mean by taking a disguise?" And A Sango wrote, "A disguise. Example: the statue of Mary represents another female deity." Okay, and that is called syncretization. Okay, okay, syncretization. So we are using, and in the manner of, and in a manner of speaking, Rashida, you are correct. Be hidden in plain sight, but that's not the spiritual principle. The principle here is that of syncretization. I am going to use this to represent something else. And that is the principle behind the use of idols and statues. And I have an old YouTube video. If you go to my channel, you will see that video on idols and statues, what that really means. It happens today, and remember I said it still happens today in the church. There are a lot of religious leaders, and not just the church, it also happens in other religious organizations. There are let me use a church as an example. There are people, religious leaders, who put things in their church that you think it is one thing, but in reality it is something else. They could put a deity, their ancestors, whatever it is there. But you coming in, you're thinking it's Saint Peter or Saint Joseph, or you're thinking it's Saint Bebe, or whatever, whatever. But the person who put that there knows exactly what they put there. And so every time you go there and make prayers, make petitions, make invocations, you are making it to that spirit guide, that deity that they have enshrined in that object. And you are adding to the power of that deity or spirit guide that's in that object. But in your mind, you're praying to Saint Bebe. But that's not Saint Bebe. It looks like Saint Bebe, but it's not Saint Bebe. And so this man takes this soil to his home. And think about how ingenious this is. He makes a covenant. And remember that a lot of covenants are made on soil. When we talk about covenants, covenants are made on soil. Why? Because soil is everlasting. Soil, you can't destroy soil. It doesn't go away. Soil is always there. Soil represents lineage. So as Naaman aligned himself with the deity of Elisha, he was aligning his lineage, he and his descendants. That's what that soil represents. Because he has the soil and his descendants will inherit that soil. So it's a lineage thing. And remember my video, if you haven't watched it, on ancestral covenants, contracts, and vows. So he established a covenant for his lineage. And what kind of covenant? A healing covenant. Whenever we call on this deity will heal us. Because that was the basis of the covenant. That was the basis of the alignment. He aligned himself with the deity for healing because the deity healed him. He didn't come to Elisha's God for wealth. He didn't come to Elisha's God for power. He didn't come to Elisha's God for fame. He didn't come to Elisha's God to have psychic powers or any other kind of spiritual powers. He came to Elisha's deity for healing. And so once he aligned himself with that deity and vowed that for the rest of his life he would always worship this deity, is now a deity of healing attached to his lineage. And you can believe me, he just didn't go there with a shovel, pack up some sand, and go head on home. There were some rituals that happened on that soil before he took that soil with him home. Certain things happened on that soil before he took it with him and went home. And he went and put it in his own home. The home that he would leave to his descendants. But again, this deity he's taking home is also disguised and syncretized. So anybody coming into that home will think it's Syrian soil, but it's not Syrian soil, it's Israelite soil. But do you think that Naaman is going to be out there ringing the bell and say, hey, hey, come and see some Israelite soil I have up in here? No, he won't. But he will give instructions to his household. Don't nobody go mess with that soil I put over there. He took 2 huge basketfuls of the soil. So we're not talking about a handful of soil, basketfuls. So you already know that this was a lot of soil. So the instructions will be nobody should mess with the soil. I'm going to put it over here in a heap. We're going to maybe build something around it, fence or hedge or something around it. And that soil is going to be there. It will not be disturbed. If the king happened to come to his home and look, all the king would see is what? A heap of soil. And the king would believe, well, this guy has a heap of soil out here. Why do you have a heap of soil out here? It's just a heap of soil. But Naaman and his household will know that this was a special kind of soil performing a function in that household. In some places in Africa, let me talk about where I know. In some places in Africa, when people, there are certain cultures, let me put it that way, let me hone it down. And some of you might be familiar with this. In some villages in the countryside, some homes have a mound of soil. And there are many people who are alive today who don't know the function of that mound of soil that is right there in their ancestral home. And if you're familiar with what I'm talking about, please signify in the comment section. There are some people, if you go to your ancestral home, you will see right there in the compound or outside, immediately outside the compound, a mound of soil. And that soil is a mound of soil. And if you talk to certain people in your family and say, what is the significance of this mound of soil? They will tell you it is a deity. They won't tell you it represents a deity. They will tell you it is a deity. And there were certain rituals that were done to put that particular mound of soil there. And back in the day when the people understood the function of that mound of soil, they would offer sacrifices on that mound of soil. And in some communities or in some communities or family, that mound of soil could be there for protection. Some people have those mounds of soil for prosperity. Some people have those mounds of soil for fertility, so that children, multiple children, plenty of children will be born in that family or in that compound or family. But you will see a representation of that mound of soil. So you can see this was not just a Middle Eastern thing. I'm not so sure about Asia and Europe and the Americas, but I think the Native Americans had something similar. But it's just a mound of soil. And it was always soil. Always soil. That soil will be put together and then it will be carefully built into a mound. And that soil had to be brought from somewhere. And there were certain rituals that were done over the soil as it was being built into a mound. And then that after the installation of that mound of soil, that soil performed a function in that family or compound or community. And you had people in that community who maintained that mound of soil. There was one I saw, was it last year or 2 years ago in Nigeria? The people in that community had abandoned, it was a huge mound of soil. I mean, that thing was, it was, I would say it was as wide as the sofa I'm sitting on and probably just as high. Earth. Okay. And they had abandoned it for a very long time. And there were certain things going on in that community. So they invited their local chief spiritual practitioner to do something about it. And he put out the question, what should I do for this to reactivate it, to honor, to do whatever? And in the night, he had a dream of exactly what he was supposed to do. And by the time I saw it, he had already dressed the mound of soil with cloth. Okay, Yarofeh says mounds of soil like that also exist in front of the king's palace. Okay. According to people, if you climb it, you become the king's property. Usually they say a woman who climbs it becomes the king's wife. But I am talking about the one you're talking about is something to do with the king, but this one had nothing to do with the king. These ones were deities. It's not owned by anybody. They were deities performing specific functions. And remember, we've talked about it in class that every spirit has a specific function. Every spirit, even you yourself, you have a specific function. And that's why you have a life destiny. Because you came here to do something. You came here to perform some kind of function. So we're talking about these mounds that were built as representations of deities, as abodes of the deities, and embodied the deity. Another thing we can learn from Naaman's the leper story is, remember, after all this went down, he still would go every day and bow down to the Syrian gods with the king. And we can learn something from that as well. There are some people who think that their spirituality cannot be mutually inclusive with their religious activities, and that's not true. There are many people who practice serious spirituality, but they're still in the churches, they're still in the mosques, they're still in the temples. And they have roles that they fill in these religious organizations. But they know the true source of their powers. And so when you go to the church or mosque or whatever religious organization and you're running around with them and y'all are clapping hands and singing and giving your offerings and tithes and doing all kinds of things and carrying on, and maybe they even have high positions in the church or high positions in the mosque, you have no idea that that is not the real source of power, that they're just there with you to satisfy the approval of society or approval of their family. But their real power, their real allegiance, their real loyalty is back in that altar, that shrine that they have hidden from view. And so this is one of the reasons why you can have pastors and prophets and evangelists and imams and muftis and alfas and priests and bishops and general overseers, whatever their titles are. They're there in front of the church or mosque or temple or synagogue, and they're screaming and yelling and carrying on, and everybody's like, but their true allegiance is not even there. So they're saying things and doing things that they themselves do not even believe in, because they know that the source of their power is not there. Their source of their power is in their home or somewhere hidden. Because if Naaman could do it, why can't they do it? So Naaman is going there every morning with the king, and they're prostrating, falling down before the Syrian deities, before the Syrian gods. But he has already had a lineage covenant with an Israelite deity that the king had no idea of. So the king is there doing his things with the Syrian gods and the Syrian deities. And Naaman is there by his side, holding him up and supporting him, and they're doing all their things. But the very person, his right hand man, did not believe in what he believed in. So there's a lesson there. Don't think because someone is out there in your church or your temple or mosque or wherever, they're falling out and doing this and saying this, and you need to do, and they're in charge of this and whatnot, and they're helping with this, that they believe what they're doing. For many of them, it's just a job. Okay, I'm the deacon of the church. Y'all have made me the deaconess of the church. Yeah, I'll come in here. I'll wear my good outfits, look good, preach the word. But when they want to solve problems in their life, they're not coming to that church or so. They're going back to their altar or shrine to solve their problems. Because that's where their power is. And remember when I said in other classes that there are a lot of religious leaders who work with their spiritual crew, who honor their ancestors, who make offerings to their spirit guides. You can see that this is what's going on. It didn't start today. This is right there in the Torah, it's right there in the Bible. And I dare say it could be somewhere in the Quran. So when you're going to these religious organizations and you are abandoning yourself to it, you're abandoning yourself. Oh, this is the only thing. This is the only way. There's no other way. This is it. And you're looking around, everybody is screaming and yelling the same thing as you are. They're singing, they're falling out, they're clapping hands, they're praying, they're doing all kinds of things. You are making an assumption that they're doing and believing the same thing that you do. But you need to take some time and look at your life and their life. And you need to be sincere and ask yourself, how do they solve their problems? Is it this thing we're doing in here that's what they use to solve their problems? Or do they have another way that they take to solve their problems? Okay. If you enjoyed today's class, let's have your AYE in the comment section. If you learned anything from today's class, let's have your AYE in the comment section. Thank you. I want to guess this is Tochi. I wouldn't say Chai Chai. It's Chi. Thank you, Dr. Karen. Thank you, Anthony Zuba. Thank you, Zerabenda. Thank you, Creative Solutions. Thank you, Ace2. Thank you, The Trinity. Thank you, Grace L. So let this story, the story of Naaman the leper, give you permission to use whatever means that you have to use to solve your life problems. Don't be stuck on your religious path and be suffering with your problem. If Naaman could align himself and form a covenant with an Israelite deity while he's bowing down to a Syrian deity, you too, you can do the same thing. Because there's nowhere in the Bible or Torah we hear that at the end he suffered because of it. There's nowhere it is written there that at the end of all that he burned in hell fire for that. And there's a reason why that story is in there for us to read today. Ask yourself, why that story there? Some people say, oh yeah, it just shows that the God of the Israelites is superior to the gods of other it was superior. That's why it's in there. That's not why that story is in there, because there's so many spiritual principles embedded in that story. Because if the Israelite deity was superior to the Syrian deity, why didn't he use that opportunity to try and convert the Syrians to the Israelite deity? He was a king's right-hand person. He could have chopped off the king's head and taken over with the power of the Israelite deity, but he didn't. Remember, the king of Syria had enslaved the Israelites, and his right-hand man was now aligned with the Israelite deity. So if someone is offering that argument that, well, yeah, it shows that the Israelite deity was powerful and blah, 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 blah. Okay, it was powerful. So why didn't the Israelite deity make him take over the Syrian government? Because he was the king's right-hand man. All he had to do was chop off his head and take over, have a coup. And then he would have the backing of the Israelite deity. But there's nowhere in there you will read that that happened. He just continued his life venerating the Israelite deity and left his king and the people to continue with venerating their Syrian deities. So the thing to understand from this, and I like the way you put it, Zuripenda, do what you must, just be wise. I love the way you put that. Let me highlight that. Do what you must, but be wise. I like that. Don't let someone else put fear into you and say, oh no, you can't use this thing to solve your problem, or you can't solve your problem this way, or you can't solve it the other way. Solve your problem. You're the one who wears the shoe, so you know where it pinches. It is very easy to give advice to people who are suffering when you yourself, you're not suffering. Very easy. People tell you, if I were in your shoes, I would do this. But if they were in your shoes, they would not do it. I remember one financial um, advisor that used to write in the O magazine. I used to subscribe to O magazine. And one person was writing about how hard it was for her to find a job. I think the woman owed some credit card bills, and the woman was just writing, I'm just finding it hard, and there are all these things going on in my family. And this financial advisor, Suze Orman, wrote back and say, "Stop being lazy. There are jobs all over America." And it turns out that when Suze Orman wrote that response to that woman was during the 2007-2008 financial crash in America. And I remember reading that comment, and not only did I stop reading Suze Orman's stuff, because I used to read a lot of her stuff about money, and what to do with money, but it made me stop reading her, and it made me stop my subscription to the old magazine. Because you had somebody there giving advice that was totally out of touch with reality. And I think at that time I was even looking for a job myself. And she was like, "Stop being lazy." But Suze Orman she had multiple streams of income. And in her column and that advice she wrote to that woman, she didn't even say to the woman, okay, if it's hard to find a job, how about doing a little bit of this, little bit of this, and have a little income coming in until your job situation stabilizes? No, she didn't say that. She didn't reveal the source of her own well-being, the source of her own wealth. She just wrote there, "You're being lazy. There's nobody in America who needs a job who won't get a job no matter how little they pay." What's the point of someone putting in 60 hours a week at a job that doesn't pay the bills? What is the sense in it? And Suze Orman herself would not do it. She would never do it herself. Would Suze Orman herself be willing to work at a menial job for 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week that still was not paying the bills? She wouldn't. But she was writing that somebody else was lazy. And so that's when I stopped reading her. And shortly after that, I didn't renew my subscription to that magazine. So you have to understand that a lot of times, people you see in positions of power and authority may give you advice, may be living a lifestyle that doesn't reveal to you the source of their power, the source of their wealth, their source of their being. They will not tell you. So if they will not tell you this thing, don't you think that you should solve your problems by whatever means you can? As long as your means do not hurt somebody else. If somebody's not revealing to you how they're making it, why should you feel obligated that you need to continue winning their approval? that whatever you do has to be approved by them, that they wouldn't talk about you, wouldn't be angry at you or whatever for you solving your problems. But they're not coming to you and asking you for approval on how they solve their problems. They're not asking you. They don't ask your opinion. They don't come to you for advice. They solve their problems by their own means privately, and they don't even share with you how they're solving their problems. But you're consumed. Oh no, I don't want this person to think I'm being obstinate. I don't want this person to think I'm being rude. I don't want this person to think I'm being greedy. I don't want this person to think. I don't want this person to say. I don't want this person to think. I don't want this person to say. And you continue suffering with your problems. So we need to learn from these things. If you need to get a hold of me for your divinations, consultations, spiritual practice coaching, dream interpretation, your classes, courses, books, and more, spiritual products like this cast iron thing. This is the newest thing I have in my store. Please go to my website at tochi.us, tochi.us. And remember, I don't do transactions outside of my website. Okay? If anybody comes to you claiming to be me, offering to solve your problems, please realize that they are a scammer. Okay? If you have a consultation with me, you'll be talking to me one-on-one. If you selected a video meeting, you will be seeing me, not someone claiming to be my assistant, not someone claiming to be my helper, not someone claiming to be part of my team. No. No. Okay? So stay safe. We're thankful to our Creator, our guardian spirits, our ancestors, our spirit guides for today's forbidden fruit. Ashe, say, Kumanu, Nkoza, Osedi, Kwande, Ayibabo, Mia, Nkwa, Sumo, the beat, and Ho. It is done, it's finished, it's complete. Ma'at, Amen. Thank you all for coming to class. Love you all. That's interesting. So I know the settings not there. Okay. Yay, yay, yay.